Good morning and welcome to Northridge. Whether you are watching online or in person, we are so glad that you are joining us for this worship experience. Let us know if you are in the room with us by scanning the QR code on the seat in front of you. That's also a great way to let us know how we can be praying for you. Giving is a great way to stay connected to what God is doing in and through Northridge. To make giving a part of your worship experience, go to the Northridge app or our website and click Give. If you're new to Northridge, be sure to stop by our starting point after the service for a gift. It's located in the lobby by the cafe. Just look for the blue banners. We hope that something you experienced today will help you move closer to Christ. Enjoy the service.
Well, good morning, Northridge. Oh, man, first service is better. They got the extra hour, apparently. They steal your extra hour? I don't know what's going on. Good morning, Northridge. There we go, man. It's good to see you. No coffee. I don't need it this morning, right? You? No? No? Okay, just me. Hey, I am so glad that you're here. If you are new with us, there's a QR code on the back of those chairs. If you want to scan that and put in your information so we can get to know you, we would love to get to know you. That is also a great place for you to submit prayer requests so we can be praying for you through the week. But hey, this week, today, Adam's talking about perseverance. And when I think about perseverance, there's a portion of our church that really exemplifies that. And I just want to honor them really fast. If you are a veteran in our church, could you please stand up for us? We would love to honor you. All veterans, please stand up. Man, we are so grateful for you, the time and the energy and the blood, the literal blood, sweat and tears that you put in and the stresses that you go through for us as a nation and for your family. Man, we are so grateful for you. I think as Adam talks today that you will understand why we tie these together. But if you will all stand, we will continue to worship together as a family.
Gonna wait for the walls to fall, 'cause I know one day that will bring them down. Oh, I've got a praise waking within my soul, and I'm not afraid to declare it now. Light of the world, trample the dark. You are the God of the weapon formed against your name prevail. Jesus, the great I am. Light of the world, trample the darkness. Oh, nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished. Nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Oh, you are the God of the promise.
There's a table that you prepared for me in the presence of my enemies. It's your body and your blood shed for me. This is how I fight my battles. There's a table that you prepared for me in the presence of my enemies. It's your body and your blood you shed for me. This is how I fight my battles. And I believe you've overcome it. I will lift my song of praise for all you've done. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. In the valley, I know that you're with me. And surely your goodness and your mercy follow me. So my weapons are praise and thanksgiving. This is how I fight my battle. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. Sing it out. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. 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 It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you.
My name is Amy Lee, and I'm the Associate Principal at GMC Prep School. Being in education in this day and time, we know that kids are facing challenges that we can't even imagine. We know that students come to school with baggage and struggles and difficulties that we might not even know about. On top of that, they have classes, they have athletics, they have friendships, and all of those things make their lives so much more challenging than we think. So our job is to give them the tools that they need to work through those, to not only get through them, but to succeed and also to fail, and to teach them that through those failures and successes, they can learn so much. Our core values are character above all and duty on our country, and we strive every single day to model that, to show students how to handle everyday difficult situations with grace, humility, compassion, kindness, so that when they are faced with challenges, they can be the better person, they can rise to the top, and they can handle those. I've been at GMC for a very long time, and I have met some extraordinary students, and so many of them have persevered and come through so many tough situations. One that comes to mind that's pretty recent is a 2019 graduate of GMC, Jayla Lawrence. Her senior year, she was in a terrible car accident, and honestly, the initial reports were devastating. We weren't sure that she would ever be able to walk again. This was a vibrant 17-year-old who was involved heavily in musical theater and was an absolute light wherever she went. Positive side is she did graduate. She came through, she finished all of her classes, and not only did she graduate on time with her class, but she walked across the dais the day of graduation.
Hey, let me tell you something. Not only did that girl walk at graduation, she stood on this stage and led worship just last Sunday. That's amazing. Y'all give it up for Jayla, for Amy Lee, and for all of those that are investing in the next generation right here in this community. Let me tell you something. I used to lead an FCA program at a middle school in another county. And I can remember a middle school student getting up and sharing her testimony, and she talked about the stress in her life, the anxiety, the pressures that she was feeling. And I had a teacher who meant no harm by this, but she leaned over to me and she laughed and she said, "What kind of pressure could a middle school student possibly be under?" Man, it's like a dagger to my heart, because I'm sitting here thinking a lot, so much. There are so many things that students of all ages go through that you and I will probably never experience or even understand, which is why I am so incredibly grateful that we have Northridge Christians that are serving as coaches, as teachers, as administrators, all across this county and even beyond, that are working with students, not just to help them gain an education, but working to equip them with the resources they need so that they can overcome the challenges in our life. Listen, those people right there, those are our missionaries coming out of Northridge Christian Church. Those people are God's hands and feet, the hands and feet of Jesus that are making a difference right here in this community, and we're so excited about that. Listen, today we're going to piggyback off of one of the lessons that they're teaching their students, and it's how to persevere through the challenges that we face in this life. Let's start off by talking about some of the things that bring us joy. I'm going to share my list of joy-filled things that are in my life right now. Here's the first one. My family. What you don't know is they were fighting about 15 seconds before this picture was taken, but they're cute in this picture, aren't they? Man, I love my family. It brings me joy like nothing else can, whether it's playing video games with my youngest or going to museums with my middle child or even just watching my oldest serve in every available position right here at the church and love on people. Man, I absolutely love it. It brings me so much joy. Let me show you another thing that brings me joy. This is a close second. It's Blackbird Coffee. Specifically, it's an opportunity to leave my family for a few minutes and go to an environment where the coffee is good, the environment is great, and I don't know exactly what it is about that place, but man, just 2 hours in that place will eliminate my stress and make me a healthier person. Let me explain one more thing that brings me joy, and that's when my sports teams are doing really well. Now, the fact that you didn't clap for my family or for coffee, but sports you're all in for is a little concerning. But let me tell you something, okay? We started a series a few weeks ago called Level Up. It's what we're finishing today. Before we started that series, the Braves had not won a World Series in 26 years, and the Bulldogs were still number 2 in the country, okay? Now, I'm not saying that there's something to that, but I think they subscribe to our podcast, and we are making the world a better place. Well, let me tell you something, the things that don't make my list, the things that don't bring me joy are things like problems and challenges and difficulties, the kinds of things that Amy Lee was talking about and so much more. You know, it's the stress of work, or for you maybe school that just falls into a completely different category. Or maybe it's hardship at home that nobody else knows about, something that you don't think anybody else could possibly understand. Maybe it's some kind of challenging relational dynamic that's just weighing on your heart. Maybe it's a missed opportunity. Maybe it's doubts, fears, and insecurities. You see, all these things and more, these things lead to discouragement, and it's natural for us to avoid those things. It's natural for us to try and walk away from the things that we don't like. But the Bible encourages us to do something completely different with those things. This is what it says in James chapter 1, verse 2. It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." You see, what the author, James, says here is he says, not only should we as Christians lean into the things that often cause discouragement and frustration and anxiety, he says we should be able to reach a point where we add those things to our list of joys. Listen, when I read that, I think maybe James is crazy. Like maybe he just doesn't understand the kind of pressures that we face in our lives. He never had to live through COVID. He never had to live through the technology problems, all the other things that we face in this life. But then I take a second look, and I think maybe he understands our problems even better than we do. You see, maybe he sees past our hardship, and he knows that our greatest pathway to leveling up in the areas of life that matter most are straight through our greatest challenges. That's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to close out this series in a strong way and walk away with some things that will absolutely revolutionize our lives and help us level up in the areas that matter most. Let's talk about James for just a minute so that we can understand whether he's even qualified to talk to us about how to handle the challenges in our life. James was the brother of Jesus. There's got to be at least a little bit of conflict in that, right? I mean, if you grew up with siblings, you were probably compared to your siblings at one point in time or another, and that wasn't comfortable. Imagine if your sibling was Jesus Christ himself. Some of you think, well, they treated my brother or sister like they were Jesus Christ themselves. But in this situation, it was actually the case. But even beyond that, James led the church in Jerusalem for over 30 years after Jesus died. And during that time, the Jewish Christians that were in Jerusalem, they were considered heretics because of their faith in Jesus. They were completely cast out of Jewish society. They were completely cast out of the temple. As a matter of fact, things were so bad for the Jewish Christians that were living in Jerusalem that Paul would often travel from one people group to another people group to another people group, and he would collect money so that he could take it back to the Jewish Christians living in Jerusalem because they were so impoverished for choosing to follow Jesus. You see, James, as he writes this, he is a person in crisis who is leading people in crisis. And it's within that context that he tells us to consider it pure joy when we face trials. You see, what he says here is not if we face trials, right? He says whenever. He says not a few trials, but many trials. You see, his experience has taught him that problems in life, they're going to be frequent and they are going to be inevitable. And he challenges Christians, just like you and me, to not be discouraged about that, but to change our perspective about them. One of my favorite stories to summarize and describe what he's talking about is the story of a little boy, and he's out in his backyard, and he's got a ball in one hand, he's got a bat in the other hand, and he says, "I am the greatest hitter in the world." And he throws the ball up in the air, and he swings and misses, and he yells, "Strike one." He's not discouraged. He's got 2 more strikes, so he goes and he picks up the ball, and he says with a little more determination, "I am the greatest hitter in the world." And he throws that ball in the air, and he swings with everything he's got, but he misses, and he says, "Strike 2. At this point, it's do or die, right? Like there is determination in his eyes, and so he picks up the ball, he looks at it, and he yells, "I am the greatest hitter in the world." And he throws the ball in the air, and he swings and misses. He says, "Strike 3. Then without missing a beat, he says, "I am the greatest pitcher in the world." I like that. He just shifted his perspective and he turned this bad situation into something good. That's what James is encouraging us to do. He encourages us to change our perspective when things don't go our way, not to get discouraged, not to get angry, and not to get bitter, but to reframe every challenge as an opportunity for us to see God show up and do something powerful in our lives. Listen, the next few verses, James begins to unpack exactly what that looks like. It starts in James 1:3 when he says, "Consider it pure joy when you go through trials because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." In other words, what he says here is there is something that is developed in you when you're going through hardships that cannot be developed in times of comfort and peace. You see, when there are seasons of chaos and everything seems to be falling down around you, when you combine that with an unwavering faith in God, man, it produces something. It produces perseverance and it produces strength. The next verse goes even farther, verse 4, when he says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." You see, trials lead to perseverance, but perseverance leads to maturity, or some translations say perfection and completion. One of the leading theories about this verse is that these terms were borrowed from the Greek games. And the Greek games had 5 events, and if you came out on top in one of those events, you were considered perfect. But if you won all 5 of them, you were considered complete. You see, what James is trying to say using those terms is that if we don't bail out in the middle of the process, if we allow perseverance to grow from one challenge to the next challenge to the next challenge, then we have an opportunity to become champions of all things. Here's the summary of what James is teaching, and this is also our sermon in a sentence today. The challenges we face in life can either break us or make us whole. The challenges we face in life, they can either break us or they can make us whole. The tension in our lives is the place that God is working. How we choose to respond to that determines the outcome. Will it make us or will it break us? Will we be broken or will we be made whole? I think I speak for everybody in here when I say we want to see something good come out of our something bad. We want to see joy. We want to see progress when things are falling down all around us. We want our setbacks to become our greatest success stories. But how do we get there? Well, James unpacks over the next few verses some key principles that will help us as we try and navigate this in our life. The first one is found in James 1:5. He says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. You see, when we find ourselves in a season that's defined by hardship, when we lack the strength to keep going, when we look at our problems and declare that we have no idea how God could possibly use this mess to accomplish anything good, James says our first reaction has got to be to petition God. Ask Him to make sense of it. Ask Him to provide a pathway to victory. Ask Him to show up in a big way. My son just finished his second season of soccer. And that means that I've spent a lot of time recently watching 5-year-olds play soccer with their hands, okay? I bet you didn't know that was possible. But turns out that's exactly what 5-year-old soccer is all about. You see, it's a reflex when a ball is coming at you to use your hands to defend yourself, to stop it, to move things forward. But it takes a lot of intentionality. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of training to teach kids to abstain from that reflex and begin to respond in a different way. Listen, in the same way, when it comes to the challenges we face in life, we have to discipline ourselves to react intentionally under that pressure. Not to cave in to what's natural or easy, but to choose intentionally to do something that's going to bring about positive results. You see, it's natural when we're facing challenges to become discouraged, overwhelmed, and bitter. It's natural when we're facing challenges to first turn to a book or a podcast or even a Wikipedia article to try and help find some solution. It's natural to look for something that will numb the pain for us, whether that be pornography or shopping or alcohol or just mindlessly scrolling through social media. But James says that victory comes when we train ourselves to overcome what comes naturally, to stop giving into the reflex and to turn to Jesus. As a matter of fact, learning to turn to Him may be the very reason we're going through the struggle in the first place. Our reaction, our reflex when something bad happens has got to be to petition God and let Him speak into that situation. Author and theologian C.S. Lewis, he once said it this way. He says, God whispers to us in our pleasures, He speaks in our consciences, but He shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Listen, we often forget about how much we need God until we find ourselves in a challenging situation. But in that challenging situation, when we turn to God, we celebrate the fact that even in this, whatever this is for you, even in this, God is still in control and He is still available to each and every one of us. The next thing that James introduces in this passage that can help us in our difficult seasons is found in verses 9 through 10. It says this, believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wildflower. Here's what James is trying to explain, that poor people have problems, but so do rich people. Athletic people have problems, but so do band kids. Married people have problems, but so do single people. Older people have problems, but so do younger ones. Listen, if we waste our time comparing our lives and even our struggles with everybody else's, then we will miss out on all the good things that God wants to do inside of us. The second lesson we need to understand and embrace to rise above hardship in our lives is simply this. We've got to eliminate comparisons. Eliminate comparisons. There's an Olympic athlete named Matt Emmons, and he's one of the most famous rifle marksmen in the world. In 2004, he was representing the USA and in the Olympics, and man, he was absolutely doing an incredible job. He had actually scored so high that in his final shot, all he had to do was touch the target. It didn't matter if he hit the bullseye, it didn't matter if he hit one of the rings, it didn't matter if he went beyond that. As long as he touched the target, he could get up and walk right towards a gold medal. But for that last shot, he lined up just like this, and he steadied his breath, and he prepared. And once again, he hit a bullseye. But when he hit that bullseye, there were no cheers. There was no clapping. There was no celebration. Because it turns out what Matt was aiming at was somebody else's target. See, it doesn't happen very often in the Olympics, but it's called crossfire, and he shot a bullseye at the wrong target, and as a result, he lost. Here's the principle for us. Sometimes we spend so much time looking at everybody else's target. We compare our lives to everybody else's lives, our struggles to everybody else's struggles. We look at their highlight reel on social media and wonder why our life doesn't look like that. We look at their target so much that we miss out on all the good things that can happen if we focus on what God is trying to do inside of each and every one of us. You see, we've got to reach a point where we understand that everybody is facing challenges. Every person is facing challenges, whether you see them or not. Our job is to let those challenges, somebody else's challenges, take them to God, and let our challenges take us to God. You see, if we stay focused on our own battles and what God is trying to do in that, if we'll take pride in what God is doing in our lives, man, then we have an opportunity to become the absolute best versions of ourselves. Let's keep reading. Verse 12. In this verse, James reintroduces this idea of perseverance, but in a little bit of a different way. He says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. Because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." You see, earlier he taught us that perseverance is the result of hardship, but he says here it's also the attitude that helps see us through. You see, James doesn't say, "Blessed is the one who is never tempted." Thank goodness. He doesn't say, "Blessed is the one who finds all temptation easy to overcome." He says, "Blessed is the one who goes through temptation, who goes through struggles, who goes through hardship, but endures them all." He perseveres. He keeps on fighting no matter what life throws at them. The third thing that James introduces that we need to embrace so that we can overcome the hardship in our life is just simply this: don't quit. Don't quit. Psychologist Angela Duckworth, she's done extensive research on this, and in preparation for a book, she interviewed thousands of people. She interviewed some people that were in the military. She interviewed some people that had won the spelling bee. She interviewed salespeople, and she even interviewed rookie teachers in rough neighborhoods, and she was determined to find out what it was that created success in a person's life. She didn't know exactly what she was going to find, but as she asked questions, she found that it is not IQ, it is not race, it is not physical prowess. The answer to success in life is grit. She defined that as a passionate perseverance for long-term goals. It's the ability to stick with it, not for weeks, not for months, but for years. She says when we train our mind to understand that we are in a marathon, not a sprint, we become successful in life. Listen, she put this out, and it was supposed to be groundbreaking research that revealed something brand new. But I got bad news for her. 2,000 years ago, James wrote it in his book. And he says, based on what God is telling me, this is how we succeed. This is how we win at life. Is that class kicking your rear end? Are you struggling to pass? Are you so burdened that you don't want to go on Monday morning? James' advice is simply this: don't quit. Have you been praying for somebody that they might come to know Jesus for years now, and you're discouraged and you're broken because it's put a weight on your heart? You don't know if you can keep going. James' advice would simply be this: do not quit. Is that addiction that's in your life that shows up over and over and over again, is it challenging your resolve? James would say this: do not quit. Is life just so difficult that you can't find the strength or the energy to get up in the morning? James' advice would be this: do not quit. Did sin or tragedy claim victory over you yesterday? Do not quit. The things we face in this life, they can't break us if we just keep going. If we just determine in our hearts that we are going to press on and we are going to lean into God and allow Him to strengthen us through whatever life throws at us. There's one more thing that James introduces in this passage. And this thing has the power to transform how we approach the challenges we face in life. He talks about it in verse 17. He says, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Let me tell you something. When I read this verse, it seems out of place. I think maybe James got distracted and he forgot that he was talking about trials and problems and difficulties. But as you start to dive into it, you realize that James knows exactly what he's doing. Because he says this, he says, even when trials come, even when hardship happens, there is no tragedy that is wasted when it comes to God. You see, you and I, we may never choose to go through the problems that we're going through in life right now, but we can choose to see that God is at work in even this. And when God shows up, even our pain has a purpose. This is the final thing we can do when we're facing trials. We can simply choose gratitude. Choose gratitude because we know that God is our strength in the storm, and we know that He will use even this to make us better. I like the way pastor and author Levi Lusko, he talks about this in his book. He says, hard times are a passport that gives you permission to go places you wouldn't get to any other way. And it's because of that we are grateful. I want you to think about it like this. I don't know if you've seen one of these before. I imagine you probably have. These are all over the street in my neighborhood right now because parents use them to tag all of their kids when they were trick-or-treating. These things light up and they shine, but if you just pull one out of the pack, just like I've done it, it doesn't really accomplish anything. Like there's nothing good about this. There's nothing spectacular about this thing right now, but if you break it, it starts to light up. It starts to shine. Something changes as a result. Here's what I want you to think about when you're going through hard times, when you're going through challenges, when it feels like this world is trying to break you. I want you to recognize that maybe that brokenness is what God's going to use to make you shine. You see, if we just don't get discouraged, if we just don't get overwhelmed, if we recognize that God is at work even in this, we have an opportunity to become something even better because we trust God. Here's what we're going to do over the next few moments. To respond to what James is talking about in James chapter 1, we're going to spend a few minutes quietly taking communion. Communion's going to be available at these front stations in the middle and in the back. And you've got an opportunity over the next few moments just to go take that communion and spend some quiet time at your seat saying, Jesus, I recognize the strength that you have because of what happened on the cross. I recognize that you are in control. I recognize that there is no pain and no hardship that you cannot handle because you died in my place on the cross. You provided salvation when the world tried to bring you down. And for that, we're going to celebrate. We're going to praise God. But after we get done with that, we're going to spend a couple more minutes just singing some songs, praising Jesus. And I want to encourage you. We're going to have some people up here that would love to pray with you, talk to you about the hardship in your life. We've got these things up here too, these lights that you can come up here and you can grab. You can take it back to your seat if you want to, or you can come to the altar and pray. You can snap one of them and just say, God, I want you to make me shine. Name that problem, name that struggle, name that difficulty and say, God, even in this, do something to make me shine. You can keep that. You can hold it up during worship as a proclamation that God is in control and He will do something with this. We've also got a basket over here by the cross. If you just want to go drop it in and lay it at the feet of Jesus and say, Jesus, I trust you in this. Whatever God places on your heart, I want you to respond so that you can experience God over the next few moments. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much that we are not defined by our struggles. God, whatever our struggles are, and I'm sure there's a lot of them in this room. I'm sure there's people struggling with some deep things, some dark things, some things that they're scared to open up about, some things that they've been wrestling with for a long time. But God, I pray that over the next few moments, as they take communion, as they come for prayer, as they pick up this illustration of how powerful you are and what it is that you're wanting to do in their lives, God, I pray that they become overwhelmed by your presence. And I pray that they recognize that even in this, you are completely and entirely in control, and you will see them through. God, I know that you can use every situation that we're facing today. So God, I pray that you convince every single person of that in these next few moments. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
building around these walls. I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won.
sets my heart burning. You never failed me yet. You've never found me yet. I never will forget. You never found me yet. I never will forget.
It's dark. There we go. Listen, here's what I want you to understand. In the last service, we're not done singing yet. We had so many people flooding this stage. They were crying down up here at the front. They were asking for prayer. They were turning to these things and holding on to them with dear life, saying, God, you will move in this too. Listen, that's what we believe and that's what we're proclaiming right now. I think there's something about the second service that just says we're ready for lunch, right? We got to beat the Methodists. We got to get there before the Baptists. But the first thing we got to do is we got to go to the cross and we got to declare that God has moved in our lives and we are declaring that He is going to move again. Listen, over the next few moments as we sing one last song, whether you take one of these things or you do something different, I want you to give it all you've got. I want you to do business with God over the next few moments. I want you to spend time asking Him to move, asking Him to show up in your life, declaring whatever it is that's holding you back so that you can experience Him in a whole new way. Over the next few moments, sing with everything you got, and let's make this a powerful moment.
Conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. Sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and we claim your victory. Let it rise. Let praise arise. Breakthroughs on our side, forever lift Him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise Him. Oh, we praise You. Oh, make it song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be the song that calms the storm inside of me. Let it rise. Let faith arise. Oh, we'll see You break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For fear cannot survive when we praise Him. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift Him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise You. Oh, we praise You. Oh, this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise You. We praise You. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise You. We praise You. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise. To see you break down every wall. You watch the giants fall. For we cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For we cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We praise you. Yeah, we praise you. We praise you. God, we praise you.
You know, I consider it joy every Sunday that we get to come and worship with you. And I just thank God for our worship team and our production team. Can you give it up for them? They do such an incredible job of leading us to the cross every Sunday. Hey, just a few things that we want to keep on your radar this week. We have all of our Thanksgiving boxes have been distributed, so thank you so much. You guys did a fantastic job with that. We're going to ask that if you haven't already brought your box back, to please get those into us by next Sunday, the 14th. And if you didn't get to pick up a box, if you missed out on that, we still have envelopes in the cafe where you can donate for the cost of a turkey, which is about $20, but you can donate more if you want to. We would appreciate that, and that would help us to prepare for how we serve the community in this month. The next thing we want you to know about is December 12th and 13th is our 68th live nativity. And we're going to need you. We need your help with that. We are going to start our sign-ups for that next Sunday, November 14th. So just meet us out in the cafe. Go ahead and be thinking and praying about how you might be able to serve through this community effort. It's a wonderful way for us to show love to this community. So look forward to that. Lastly, Starting Point. If you're new here, we want to meet you there. Come and connect with us. Come, we have a gift for you. We'd love to just talk to you about Northridge and what we have going on here. And we hope you have a wonderful week. This week, be thinking about how you can use praise to defeat every fear, every anxiety, every trial that you have in your life. Be blessed.